that we see with our clients learning a new thing, but also all of the clunkiness, teaching new teachers as well. I'm feeling that clunkiness a lot, learning a language. And so I showed that, and someone was like, oh my gosh, I'm Korean. And then, you know, you get to connect with people over these like shared interests and shared culture. So it's pretty awesome. And I also want to say it's so nice to meet you, Misty, because I feel like I see you on Instagram and you host panels and moderate things and just like really incredible work. And it's awesome to be in the same room as you.
Thank you. Thank you. I've actually been looking forward to this since Martin let me know that you were the guest. So I'm really stoked for the conversation. Bummed that I missed 11 minutes of the Instagram.
Yes.
And we're just getting started.
So I could just step off to the side while you talk amongst yourselves there, because that was like a good portion of our conversation last time.
Love plants so much. I have no plants in my background currently, but trust me, every other flat surface like in my house is covered in them.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that if I walk into this house with one more plant, my relationship will be over. I think that the plants are going to be the end of us, but there are many worse hobbies to have.
Yes. Yes, that's what I keep saying. That's what I keep saying to my partner as well. I'm like, come on. And then you get good at plants, and then they like make plant babies, and then you're like, I can't. It worked so hard to make a baby. Like, I can't just throw it away. You just need a new pot and a new thing. I've got a bookcase that's just plants. It was a bookcase. Now it is a plant case, and that's fine.
Like literally my two favorite things. So no one would throw their baby out. Nobody would throw plants. I'm not throwing out my new ones.
I love that.
Martin, next time I see you,
let me
I'm giving
say
you a
this.
plant.
We have when we moved back into our house, our next door neighbor got us this beautiful orchid plant, and my response was like, I'm responsible for this? It's like someone dropped a baby on my doorstep, and I'm like, I'm responsible for this child now, or this puppy? Like, it's going to die a sudden, abrupt death because I'm not good at taking care of it. I don't want that responsibility.
It's not, orchids are hard. That is a cruel first plant to have. They are miserable. I would not start you with, I would give you a normal plant, something that you can, kind of set it on the shelf and maybe remember to water it, hopefully, but it's still going to live. Orchids are impossible. Not impossible. They just require a lot of work.
And I mean, I went through a survival of the fittest stage in Chicago where I am, because I had all of these plants and plant dreams, and then you see plants that are really pretty and it's just like the humidity is not going to work here, or they need some specialized something. But I think the ones that I have now are just like really happy, and like they're happy where they are, and then they just keep growing. And now we're doing a little jungle vibe. I was sharing plant pics with Martin before that, showing him my plant nook.
You know what? I agree totally. Like fiddle leaf figs. Everyone gets a fiddle leaf fig. My first fiddle leaf fig was a disaster.
They're hard too.
Impossible. He's still alive, but I mean, I actually,
that's the other thing too.
Because I named my plants. I'm giving you air, and I'm not even talking to you anymore. I stopped talking to this plant. I forgot about it. And lo and behold, now he's up to 10 leaves in 2 years after dropping.
Olivia, do you name your plants too? Like, Misty has all kinds of names for her plants.
I did at one point, but when I got into I don't think I'm in triple digits of plants, but I did reach a point where I name them by the pot that they're in. Like, I have these really cool pots that have like ladies' faces on them. And so I'll call them like my succulent ladies. I call them my suck ladies, which sounds probably not the best name for them, but like in my head, that is what I call them. And I wouldn't be able to keep any of them alive if I didn't have an app that told me when to water them. That
too.
I know, you kind of have to.
I do love it. But I also like to know what they are, and I should do that because it requires a lot of light, and I do not have a lot of light in my house. So
you got the grow lights and stuff too,
but
like Andrew does here.
I totally Listen, I'm putting in a new office downstairs, and we're building the grow lights into the ceiling. I'm so excited.
Amazing. I'm jealous. Oh my gosh. That's probably the next level. That's the next level.
That full on problem. I'm gonna like need staff to help with the plants at this point.
You just have a nanny. You have plants.
I love it.
Babies. You may as well have like a plant nanny.
Plant nanny.
I figured this out. I would. There are actually services that will come to your home and watch over your plants for you when you travel. And I'm already looking.
Yeah.
I mean, even though there are people in my house when I travel, I don't trust them.
So one time we had this kind of conversation about plants. I think Jenna Zaffino's another like plant lady. And my next guest the next day had all these plants. And I was trying to like front like I know all this stuff about plants. Like, oh, that's a beautiful plant. And what is that? And she's like, that's fake. And I sent it to Misty. I was like, I tried so hard.
I will say, when I teach, when I have plants on camera, I do use fake plants on camera because I can't bear watching them like get sad of like a time lapse of like the collapse of a plant. So I do use fake plants when I'm teaching because at least they're like there.
And this is why you have plants. Oh, I missed it. I was going to turn my screen. There is a hummingbird. He's gone. And he was like this close. And I was like, oh boy, how's this going to go? And then he just took off. See, like and they're so much better than chipmunks.
Yes.
It brings beauty into your life and beauty that hopefully won't eat you.
And just so that Martin doesn't feel left out of the conversation, but beauty exists in like many forms. I remember us joking about cars, and I know nothing about cars. I don't actually have a driver's license, so I know less than nothing about cars. But I know that there is a lot of beauty and craftsmanship and power and style and whatever happens in car land as well. So beauty in many ways.
Olivia, it's fine. Martin. We can talk plans. It's good. It's all good. But it's that conversation about those multiple passions that we have. Like you said in our last conversation, not a zero-sum game. It's not like because I love plants, I can't love Pilates, or because I love cars, I can't. We can pour ourselves into all these things, and those become connecting points for the people that we work with, right? Like, so, and they give us energy, they give us life. Like this guy had a sticker that said "emotional support vehicle," and he had a sticker in the window of his car. And I was like, I asked him to send me one. It's like $10, 10 pounds European. So I'm gonna ask Alex to make one for me. But but that's it, right? We find things that make us come alive, that make us feel alive, and those are great. That's why I have all kinds of time for your plant talk.
Well, it's about facets, right? Or webs or whatever you want to call it. Nobody is flat Stanley, dimensional, bland. Like, I mean, there are people that may be that way, but I'm sure if you have a conversation with them, eventually they'll even have something that you can connect on. And, that's part of this experience. It's bringing it back to what we do. Some people walk into the studio and they're like, I hate exercise. I hate everything about exercise. I even hate exercise people. I don't like exercise clothes. I don't like exercise food. I'm like, exercise food. But what it comes down to in a lot of cases is they just haven't found their language of exercise. They haven't found the piece of exercise that elevates them, brings them joy, whatever. And so, it's important to recognize that and not take that as a personal slight or affront or them not believing in what you do or your profession. It's just another piece of the puzzle that we have to find.
I would say I agree with that 100%. And the other part is I wrote down is permission. Like a lot of times we cross paths with people who don't feel like they deserve something to indulge or deserve something for themselves besides even the movement itself. And those are the people that I'm challenging. No, get one of those. Give that a try. Go there. That, like, you know what I mean? Like, just giving them permission to explore something that might give them joy because they're in that mom mode where they have to sacrifice, or that dad mode where I have to provide and there's no time afforded to me for me.
Yeah, I mean, I see that a lot with clients. I work with a lot of people who are older in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And one of the biggest things that we work on, as much as we do super cool exercises together, is like finding that space and just entertaining that, like, maybe I could do that. Like, maybe I could stand on the reformer. And it's not the first thing we're going to do, and we're not going to do a cartwheel necessarily first thing. But just like opening that possibility of like, what if we tried something new? What if we, like, I have clients that I've been working with for years and years and years, and it's like, you can do long stretch. Like, you're 85, but that's not limiting you from doing long stretch. Like, you have all the pieces. Let's put them together. We'll start with knees down. How do we feel? Oh, this feels okay. How does it feel to just lift your knees and then come right back down? And just really creating that safe space and just being this, like, sometimes a cheerleader, but just like this earnest encourager, and like seeing for them things that they may not be able to see for themselves just yet. Because then when they do that thing that there's like no way that I could do teaser, but then they do, and you're just like, and then it's just like amazing. Like that's why I do what I do, because that moment.
About belief, right? If they don't believe in themselves, sometimes if they believe that we believe in them, it adds a layer of respect and trust, and maybe sparks that curiosity or that adventure that we want people to find. You know, I was watching accidentally, what was it? Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel the other day. And he had this, it was the Olympics, but it was for seniors.
Oh,
and
no.
I am telling you, this was the most inspiring thing I have ever seen. I mean, they showed the women running the 50, and some of them like, but they were out there and they were doing it. And everybody had a big smile on their face. They were so engaged. They were so loving it. They were so believing in themselves and what they were doing. And there's a woman, she's 88, and she's a pole vaulter. And she said, you know, people say they don't want to get older. I want to get older. I can't wait to get older, because you know what? Then there's less people in my age class from the feet.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, she's so great, and she's laughing. The woman that was in the 100-year-old swim group
Oh my God.
was in the group because everybody else died.
Wow.
Swam, and she still does turns.
Yeah.
Like, I would throw up. How is she doing flip turns? Because she believes and she lives it. They all live it. And that I think that's why I love what we do, is because, you know, whether it's, even if it's somebody that's young and super healthy, there's a reason why they come in to work with us. And if we can help them get beyond that reason and into the next level, that's great. But even if we can get them to figure out what that reason is, if they can't articulate it or whatever, and explore it and find something new, that in itself is a win.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's really what it's all about. And we kind of get to be Pilates teacher detectives, because people don't always say what they want or why they're there. Like, they'll say, oh, I want a strong core, or, oh, I want better posture. But there's like an underlying, like, really deeply personal thing for them. And maybe it's getting out of bed or getting out of a chair without using their hands. Or, you know, sometimes it's like a move. They're like, I really want to do teaser. And then you're like, awesome, you came to the right place. And we do a lot of teaser here. But sometimes it's something like, I want to swim and turn my head and be able to take the breath without my neck hurting. Like, I feel like my neck is what's holding me back from swimming laps. And it's like, also, you're in the right place, because we can do that too. Like, the work that we do is applicable to real life things. And with all the fun equipment we get to play with, we can really be like Joseph Pilates and create exercises and create new ways to use the equipment that supports them. so that they feel like they are doing,
Yes.
they get back to doing what they want to do
That was
as well.
so well said
Mhm.
by Moon from Vietnam yesterday. She's saying, like, I don't teach people exercises. I teach them how to move and how to create movement
Mhm.
for that very reason. Like, people come in, it's like, hey, well, what do you need? And then she's able to go pull from that foundation to be able to teach teachers how to understand that instead of saying, okay, this is the next exercise. And that's great, you know. And the other part too, to Olivia, what you just said there, there's amazing credibility that we get when you go out and watch the person swim and then come back and be like, you know, I watched you the other day and this is what we're gonna do today. But like my client who is in his 70s
Mhm.
who had a neck injury and is recovered and took up drumming, I saw a video of him playing the drums. And based on that video, it's like, we are working on X, Y, and Z today because I saw in the video how, like a lot of drummers, you start to slouch.
Mhm.
If you open up this way, you're going to be able to get more breath in, open your lung capacity, be able to play longer and not be. And those connections from watching him do his thing informed where we go with our movement.
Mhm. Definitely. And then you get clients who love working with you because they see how much you care about them. Like in doing those things, we really, um, this entire idea of like a therapeutic alliance, but just like building a working relationship with your clients where like that's how you create that safe space, that space for possibilities, that space to do really cool things at
Yes.
every age and do more of the cool things
Right.
that you do on your own as well. And we get to just like be instrumental in that, which is like the best job in the world. Oh my gosh.
You have to connect the dots. And that's, you know, studio life is one thing. There are all kinds of things that people can do in the studio, but they can't necessarily draw the through line to. And, you know, I do that very same thing, Martin. I will very often say, send me your video, or especially with my younger
Yes.
people, I'll just show up at one of their practices, you know, and hopefully they don't see me, but sometimes they do. You know, take notes and all of these things so that when they come in, one, you know, what I'm doing is very targeted and specific, but two, they're like, why would you do that? Why would you come to my practice? Well, why wouldn't I? You know, I told you on your first day that we're doing this together. Well, this is a partnership. This isn't just me standing over you doing this. We're in this together. And part
Yes.
of doing this together is me showing up just to do. And, you know, sometimes when I'm mentoring people and I tell them that I do this, they're like, well, what do you charge for that? Blah, blah, blah. It's not about charging. It's like, do you charge to get better at math so that you can balance your checkbook? No. Or does someone charge you? Whatever it is. It's not that thing. I'm really bad with analogies today, and every day, actually. But it's not about that. What it's about is
Yes.
doing the best I can. And so, you know,
Yeah.
if somebody wants me there every day, that's a different story. But it's always about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what more can I?
Absolutely. Olivia, last time we were talking, we spent a lot of time on the defining who we are and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to throw this out to you now because the world has changed multiple times since the last time we talked. Who are you? Boom. That's good. We're, you
Just
know,
really getting
we're
in there,
both
Martin.
women.
Like,
You know, let's do it.
who am I? I'm going to jump off of what Misty added, that we have these multiple facets and that I would once upon a time say, well, I'm a Pilates teacher. But I think that that's a piece of it. I think that I'm a Pilates teacher. I think that I'm a detective and a problem solver and a creator and someone who has like a deep sense or a deep desire to make the world a better place. And maybe that's using the language of Pilates. Maybe that's sending a friend a plant, a starter plant that they won't kill, that's not an orchid. Maybe it's, you know, making a really delicious meal for a partner. So I definitely have a strong desire to care. I think I've grown a bit in the year that I saw you. I hope so. It would be weird if it was the exact same place. But I feel a lot more confident in coloring outside of the lines and using Pilates, like so much beauty, so much nuance and intricacy in Pilates, in classical, in doing it this way, but also and totally feeling comfortable adhering to that. And at the same time, knowing all of the ways that I can use Pilates and not quite Pilates way. And maybe it's, knee rehab for a knee replacement. And is it still Pilates equipment? Is it Pilates exercises? Like loosely. And I feel a lot more confident in myself as a teacher and being able to present like, let's try this thing. And then when people are like, well, I don't really know. And then you're like, you find that relationship, that trust, you kind of work out how much are we pushing the envelope? Like I'll start sessions sometimes and I'll just ask like, are we going upside down today? And sometimes they're like, yeah. And sometimes they're like, please don't make me do that. And I'm like, that's totally cool. So I guess all of those things are me. Do I get to throw it back to you? Do I get to ask you how who you are, how you see yourself changing in a year?
As I threw that out to you, I recognize as it left my mouth that I might have to answer that question myself. And that has evolved as well, right? That really has evolved. And I was going to open with, am I still a movement specialist? Right? Because it was like this big pivot from I'm a personal trainer to I'm a Pilates person. And then I started to focus back on my counseling and just that side of it. It's like, well, movement is more than just physical. There's an emotional movement. We've recognized how much mental health is tied into what we do. So I really embraced the movement specialist. And now I'm moving more back into a community element of it with this municipal election and stuff. It's like, no, it's still a movement specialist. We're still moving things. We're still moving people. We're still moving communities and just collectively doing that. So I think I might still land there. I can't let go of this. I love these connections. I see how much, how great this is expanding. And I feel like I'm just in a spot where I'm just a community builder. I really am just a community builder on every level.
So true, Martin. You really are.
Let's throw it to Misty.
Do we get to throw it to Misty? Do you want to tell us who you are?
Yeah. So I see myself as a facilitator. So, I'm a translator. I translate what people are saying, whether it's through movement or through words or through actions. I then interpret it, and then I weave stories with it. And I try to I try to keep it as unfiltered as possible. Unfiltered as in these stories that I tell while I may be telling them through my lens, hopefully aren't muddied by my own personal interpretations, because just like in Pilates, when we dictate to somebody how they should move, how they should feel, I think that's the issue with storytelling too. We can't color someone else's tale with our stuff. So that's why I say, the facilitation part is important. So, and then I like both of you, I do believe in it's the small pieces that we bring together to create. You can call it a stew, you can call it a community, you can call it whatever you want, but it's bringing those pieces and helping that makes things interesting for me. What is that fake?
I mean, you just did it beautifully. I was like, I don't even have anything to add to that. Like, I think that's really awesome.
Hey, thanks. Just spitballing, but yeah, and
it was beautiful.
Well, I mean, I do love this space. I love the time that I'm in personally as an individual. I love the space that we're in where we're meeting people all over the world and having these talks. And, you know, I love working with my students and my clients and seeing their evolution. It's just,
It does. It does.
you know, it all comes
Olivia,
together.
I have to say, there must be like, I guarantee almost every week after these conversations, I message Misty and I'm like, I love us. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God,
But
it's so good
every
today.
time. I think it's like
Every time.
I mean, you're both really awesome, and you get lots of practice being awesome, which is also awesome. Like, I love that both of you share yourself. You don't do awesome stuff like in secret in a quiet room. I mean, it will be in a basement, but it'll have grow lights and lots of plants, so it'll be awesome.
And enjoy it too, and they will have names. Well, I'm running out of names. Like, when you have to add Post-its to each pot, like, jump the shark with the names, like, time to stop. But, you know, I think, you know, back in the day, pre-COVID, a lot of us were content to keep our awesomeness, or whatever it was. I didn't even see it as awesomeness. I just saw it as what I did. Close to the vest, because wading out into the shark-infested waters and all of that was just not a place where anybody wanted to go. And I know for me, being out here and meeting people, again, having these chats and interacting with people that I never would have had the opportunity to interact with back then, it really is fulfilling and so enjoyable. And it adds dimension. I don't think we say that we're Pilates teachers anymore, because we do so many more things in a bigger way that, you know, we want to celebrate and we want to be loud about. And I think that that's great for all of us. And not that there's anything wrong with saying, I'm a Pilates teacher and that's what I do and that's where I live and I don't want to do anything else. I love that space. That is fantastic. And I applaud everyone that has found that piece of them that makes their heart sing. We have lots of songs going on, and it's nice to be able to honor all of them.
Olivia, when you're talking about that language, I find I use the word currency a little bit more than language, in that sense of using Pilates as a currency. It's something that is paying the way for me to get admission into this room to talk about something else. Right. And but it's just it. Like, I mean, like, even within the Pilates world, I questioned at first wanting to learn classical, and now recognizing that I have that in my pocket, not saying one's better than the other, but having that is a currency. Having Pilates in movement instead of, like, you know, Pilates in the fitness world, having Pilates as a currency. Right. So.
And isn't it to be able to say, yes, I've explored, right? Every country has its own currency. Every modality has its own currency. So even within its currency, but then to be able to explore it and expand and say, oh, you know what? I am canvassing, but I use that to start conversations that I left out of before because it's different, or it's something that someone needs, or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Circling back to something, Olivia, you were talking about with older adults, like you mentioned that just when we were talking about one of your passions. Has that kind of blossomed a little bit more over the last little while? Because, like, you were mentioning earlier with the podcast, like your passion for teaching teachers and equipping people who are new in the space, but it sounds like you're falling more in love with, like, your aging population as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can, my heart is big enough to love both of those things, but I think I don't know if I was resisting it, but the vast majority of my clients are older than 60. But I didn't see myself as specializing with that population. That just happened to be who my clients were. But what I think I've learned over the past year, and what I've sort of opened myself up to as well, is like I don't need to pretend to be something else. Like, I can just be like, I actually really enjoy working with these people. as people as well as movers for the reasons that I shared. Like those light bulb moments are so incredible. And just like the things that you hear where like, I'll have a client come and, you know, she'll say, oh, my grandson said that, you know, I look really buff. And she's like, and but it was like, and I'm just like, that's so cool. Or one of my clients are a couple, and they were just like stopping to look at the sunset. And another couple was walking by and was like, oh, you're such a beautiful couple. Like you're both, you know, standing so tall and you like look so strong. Just like a random person. I was like, that's awesome. New achievement unlocked. Get complimented by random people in the street. But so I've also been able to, through working with these clients, begin to sort of tailor my approach and understand a little bit more the concerns that they have and the worries they have about getting older and not being able to do things, not being able to keep up, you know, going for a walk and aches and pains and things. And like, I wouldn't change them for the world, because I also recognize that, you know, I love what the person in the Olympics said, like, I love getting older. I mean, you're going to get older anyway. So like loving getting older is probably a bit more peaceful place to be with it. And so I can stop freaking out about the gray hairs that I see on myself. But just this idea that, you know, this is, you know, if you want to look at it from a business perspective, this is an expanding population. People are living longer. And we know that exercise of any kind is pretty much the best thing you can do to live longer. And if Pilates is your love language of exercise, amazing. I've got some tricks we can play with. And just letting myself also, through like the power of networking, that being referred to other people who are also older, and just like kind of embracing that this is a space that I find myself in right now, and really making the most of it and being the best teacher that I can be for these individuals. And also like expanding my own perspective of like what's possible, because I know when you're young, and I'm on the younger side of things, like anything older than you feels like really, really old. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way. But to see these incredible individuals who are just constantly pushing themselves, like in no way staying and resting on their laurels of like, well, I've done enough Pilates in my day, I'm done, but like constantly pushing themselves to do new things and try new things. I've got a client who's like, I want to do a lunge and touch my back knee to the mat. Like, that's my goal. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, let's do it. Scooters forever. Yeah, it's so inspiring. And so empowering for me as a teacher to know that like life doesn't end after 40, 50, 60. Like you can keep going and doing things and not slow down. You can actually speed up. I have clients who say like, I'm actually doing more than I was 20 years ago.
And the honor of
that's where I want to be.
Yeah,
like I want to be looking
being
up
also
to
the
my 70s.
orchestrator of that. Like you're adding years to people's lives through the excitement that you bring to their exercise. So it's not like they're flossing their teeth. They're looking forward to this movement because they know the correlation between this dreaded exercise and being able to chase a grandchild is so directly related, right? So
yeah, I mean, I had a client who for the longest time couldn't put his legs up on the ottoman because he wasn't flexible enough. Like it just hurt to have his leg up on a footrest on a chair. And to the point that his wife was like, well, I thought you just didn't like doing that. Like, I had no idea that it was because you couldn't do it. And then just through like the power of Pilates, just moving and continuing to like go a little further, now he puts his legs up literally at every chance he can because it's something he wasn't able to do before. And it would seem like such a throwaway action to someone who wasn't having that experience. And for that to be like a big changer in his life is that now I can like sit back and put my legs up and like feel good about myself and what I can do in my body. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, I remember the first time a client of mine who had never touched her toes in her whole life at 76 touched her toes. And the joy on her face, I will never forget it. Having that kind of, I don't want to call it influence, that kind of positive effect on somebody's life is just, you know, and we all affect each other each and every day. But that is something that I know I know because they told me, her grandkids never heard the end of it after that. It was something that had always kind of bugged her, but she just never thought she could do. Can you imagine never thinking you're going to do something and then being able to do it all the time? It's part of the beauty of what we do, and
joy.
It's just joy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So good. Did you guys freeze on me there? Okay, there.
No.
Like, what happened? Okay. No,
Just waiting for you to weigh in with some wisdom, Martin.
Yeah, the lady that I'm working with over the last few months, the first time she touched her toes, like in her 50 years on this planet, she cried. And then she went home and she showed her son, and then she did it again the next day. And then once again, like welling up with tears. Like, I mean, just the injuries and everything she went through, she just wrote off as something that she's never going to be able to do. And it was just like, there's this emotional release that came with just touching her toes. And now she does it all the time. It's no big deal. But that first time, it was like waterfall. Yeah, craziness. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. We should sell ourselves short. Not just movement teachers. We're not just Pilates instructors. We're not just classical or contemporary or whatever the nonsense is this week. We're not only those things. And that, I think it'll help a lot of people feel better about themselves and what they do. I remember when I was a new teacher and I'd just gotten out of marketing and advertising, and don't get me wrong, I love movement. It's what I've done all my life, whatever. But I remember when I was I decided this is it. This is what I'm going to focus on. And going to dinner parties or whatever it was, and, oh, what do you do? I'm a Pilates teacher. Oh.
That's cute. Yeah.
Is Steve the Pilates teacher? Is that code for stripper? Like, whatever. And I just remember being like, okay, I got to find another name for this. No. I didn't need to find another name for it. I just had to own what it was about it that made me happy. And that was the interaction with the client and the feedback.
Well, that's almost like when people say, like, you talk to marketing people and they're like, well, what do you do? How do you sell yourself? And I can say, well, I'm a Pilates teacher. Or you can be like, I'm someone who changes people's lives through posture and, helping them with back pain so that they can do what they love to do longer. And you come up with some pitch and it's like, well, then that's nice for them. But like, I'm hearing myself say that. I'm owning the fact that I'm a game changer for the people that I work with. And, that reminds me of when I was, just had started doing I think I was still doing my apprenticeship on my second Pilates cert. And I got a chance to work with the Raptors 905 team. Like, they're doing an NBA fitness thing. So they called me in to do it. And the nervousness of walking into the room with these $1 million players and these guys who are hungry for big contracts and stuff. And then that pause where I realized that, okay, that's nice that you're good at what you do, but I'm also good at what I do. Right? So that sense of just recognizing who we are when we walk in a room. I don't have to make apologies. I don't have to minimize what I do. I just have to recognize who I am and how I'm enhancing your life with what I know.
Yeah, and allow it to resonate. When we feel it and we're projecting it, people get it. About it, then they get that too. And then they think you're...
So on that same topic, Olivia, can you talk about your podcast? Because I think you're doing great work on both levels with your two podcasts. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I do have two podcasts, Pilates Teacher's Manual and Pilates Student's Manual. And the goal of Pilates Teacher's Manual was it's turned to be more for new teachers, but really for just anyone in the industry. Is it mentorship? It's sort of the things that I wish I had known when I started teaching, that I figured out, and I could have been less stressed if I knew going into it what was going on. So I spend a lot of time on that podcast, both talking with guests, but also just sharing things. Like I just did an episode on raising your rates because that was something that I did and I felt feelings about it. And just also sharing like how it worked, how it went for me. For me, recognizing that I have a unique clientele and, you know, all of my clients are who they are, you know, like it can't be a universal thing, but I can just sort of share my experience. And then Pilates Students Manual is all, the goal was that it would be for Pilates students who had questions. And maybe they don't want to be a teacher, but they want to know why we're doing the roll up, or they want to know how they can do the roll up because it's been their nemesis forever. Or they're interested in like where Pilates came from, like Joe as a dude doing things. So kind of sharing sort of a behind the scenes for students that would then enhance their classes. And I started those podcasts in 2020, and I'm coming up on my 100th Teacher's Manual episode soon, which is very exciting. And I'm in the process of turning the podcast into a book as well, Teacher's Manual, making a literal Pilates Teacher's Manual. I know. I'm just like saying it frequently so that I will be accountable and actually do it. Like that's what, like, this is the goal. This is all for me, very selfish. But it's sort of the things that, and it's nothing against teacher training. It's not like, oh, teacher trainings are bad. It's just that you can't know life experience. You can't know how long it takes for a room of 12 people to get the box on the reformer until you've had a room of 12 people getting the box on the reformer. And it's long box and not short box. And this person can't lift the box and we got to help them. So like all of those sort of behind the scene things, I've got hours and hours, and like the transcripts of the podcast alone are like hundreds of pages, but I am whittling down. I'm in super editing mode, and my goal is to have that finished, saying by the end of the year, but hopefully before that. But I figure the end of the year is the goal because I've got all the materials, and it's just like my dream is that Pilates teachers, just what you and both Misty were sharing, is really owning what they do, really feeling confident in what they do, recognizing this positive impact that they're having, and just going out into the Pilates industry and sharing themselves and their unique way of doing things. Like I want more teachers like that. Like I want you to kind of not have to go through the 2-3 years of being like, who am I? Like I want you to know and just share from there. So yeah, that's what I'm working on podcast wise. But I think I never thought that I was going to be a podcaster or a content creator, which is like a weird thing. But it's really been valuable to me personally, sort of like sorting through my thoughts, because you have all these ideas that aren't totally formed. And then when you're recording them, you're like, wow, that was half baked. Let's try that again. But also in terms of like giving back to the community and hoping to elevate the community and create a community or co-create a community that I want to be a part of. So that's the podcasts in a nutshell. It's been a blast. I get to do all this like cool sound editing stuff. So I feel very hip.
Oh, that sounds exhausting. No, you know what though? I love that because, you know, people look at us, people who've taught for a long time, and, you know, they say, oh, well, you know, they've been teaching X number of years, obviously, like they've reached Mecca. They've done all the things. Now they're going to be famous or whatever it is that is their hot button, not usually ours. And they either see that as the place that they have to get to, or they see that as a place that's unattainable. And I think when you have a resource like what you're creating, what it does is shows people that, hey, it's a struggle for everybody when they get into this. Nobody just sachets in and all of a sudden it's like, boom, Pilates Jesus. It doesn't happen that way. And to know that people have had that same struggle and that somebody thought it was important enough to write it down and put it into a book, and to know that potentially that person could be a resource going down the road, I think is really important. I think one of the places where Pilates has failed its community, its public, is that it does make it look easy for the people that have made it to the top. It just looks like they were, you know, they came out of the womb doing boomerang, which sounds painful, but they came out of the womb doing boomerang, and, you know, it's just super simple. And it isn't. It is a road that has potholes and, you know, falling objects, just like any other road out there. And, well, detours, crews spackling or painting the road that gets on your car, messes up your paint. I mean, all the things happen just like it does in any other profession. So why we have this assumption that it's going to be easier or we're going to be perfect because, and maybe it's part of that, it's just Pilates thing that we hear. So it should be easier and we should just walk out and it should be just boom. I think that's really important. And I appreciate that you do that as a person that's working with new teachers or even new candidates for teacherhood, for lack of a better term. We need more resources like what you're about to provide. It's really, really important.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I feel like
so thank you.
We talk about amplifying the work of others. I think that this is an example of work that needs to be amplified. Because it's one of those things where it's like one corner of the world knows this exists, and there's another corner of the world that could really use this and doesn't know that it's out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I don't know what I expected to happen. Like I had dreams, maybe not even fully formed dreams, and the podcast has absolutely surpassed what I had dreamed. I mean, we just broke over 100,000 downloads, which is like a number.
That's huge. Congratulations.
But I know that's not. I mean, but I haven't reached the limit of who I can do, and like my goal is to also get it into multiple languages because it's a privilege to be able to listen to it in English, and I have a transcript, but the transcript also in English. And in my dream, as I'm learning Korean, I'd love to also be able to teach in Korean, which in terms of learning a second language, like the applicability of Korean is like just to a very small part of the world, but still, yeah, just to be able to meet more people where they are and to normalize in a lot of ways what you were saying, Misty, about these growing pains of, you know, coming into yourself, coming into your own, and, you know, figuring things out, and also like hopefully like recognizing like where the industry can improve, where, you know, we can improve as experienced teachers when people reach out. And it's so funny because I didn't even think that I would be in that category, but also to recognize like that we're just people, and you can just reach out to someone and email them or DM them on Instagram and ask a question, but at the same time also being very nervous to like reach out to someone and email them and DM them on Instagram, even though I know they're just people. But yeah, just making it more of an open conversation so people don't feel like you shared, Misty, that it's like, well, of course you can do it. It's like you make it look easy. Like there's no way I can ever do it. But it's like, no, man, it's like a whole journey to get there. And it's still happening. Just with better lighting now.
Yes. And plants.
And plants.
We have a minute and 15 seconds left. I've been curious enough to give me a warning this time. So, that being said, just a few comments. Okay, cool. All right, got it. Thank you so much for joining us. I would love to have you on again because this is so fun just talking shop with you, and there's so much more that I want to touch on. But
no, all good. I will come back on when the book is done, and then I'll have something to promote, and I'll be like, look, I did the thing I said I was going to do, and it'll be awesome.
100%. I'm looking forward to it. 1,000%. Awesome. It's needed.
All right. Thank you so much, Misty.
Thank you.
My friend.
Thank you. And thank you, Olivia, for joining us. It's been great.
What a party. Time flies. You are amazing. You are amazing.
Thank you.
Bye, buddy.
Have a great day, everyone.